Update, brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio's Update with Andy Wint.
Faster Mai, good evening. It's 5:30. This is Update for Tuesday, 19th of March, 2024 from Manx Radio. 30 minutes looking at the latest news on the island, background to the news and sport and business and Sea Watch and travel updates and the newsmakers in person. This evening, still no start date for the Liverpool ferry terminal. Sex education is back in school. The latest on the future of Cummal Mooar, a Gaza protest outside Cummal today, and the Manx Rams take on the UK Armed Forces.
Man Benham for all your business and legal needs.
First of all, at 29 minutes ahead of 6 o'clock, the Update News headlines. Faster Mai, Dave Moore.
Faster Mai, a Douglas man will stand trial on April 23rd after being accused of causing death by dangerous driving. 34-year-old Jackson Joseph Paul of Palace Road pleaded not guilty when he appeared at Douglas Courthouse today. 29-year-old Jordan Thomas sustained fatal injuries following a road traffic collision on Harbour Road in Onken on February 25th. Politicians are being asked to approve a new tax plan which Treasury believes highlights a commitment to supporting a financially responsible government. The island's economic strategy sets out a key objective which hopes to balance public sector income and expenditure between now and 2026. Protesters gathered outside Cummal this afternoon to urge the island's parliament to support calls for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. They say despite months of lobbying MHKs and the Chief Minister directly, there has still been no public statement regarding the Manx position. Elsewhere, people who send unsolicited photos have been told they'll be caught after the first sentencing for cyber flashing in England and Wales. 39-year-old Nicholas Hawkes from Essex was jailed for over 15 months after sending explicit images to a teenage girl and a woman in February. The UN Secretary-General says Earth's issuing a distress call after a report found evidence of yet more record-breaking temperatures last year. The World Met Organization says the world's on red alert and that extreme weather events have been off the charts. And Tesco will have to change its club card price logos because they look too similar to Lidl's branding. It's lost an appeal against the judgment which ruled in favour of the rival supermarket. Those are the Update News headlines. The next bulletin is at 6.
Secure tomorrow today with Man Benham's guidance on powers of attorney and more. Manx Radio Weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Goramaya, thank you, Dave, from the Ronalds Way Met Office. There is a strong wind warning for later on tomorrow morning. State of sea is currently slight, later moderate. And the weather for the island this evening, mostly dry, but some rain arriving overnight on a northerly as it picks up. Low temperature 6 degrees. For Wednesday, rain first thing, clearing through the morning, then sunny intervals on a light to moderate northerly breeze. Highest temperature 10 degrees, should be pleasant for Queen Camilla. Down to 6 through the night into Thursday for Jadane, cloudy with intermittent drizzle on a moderate to fresh southwesterly up to 11 degrees. Sunsets in about an hour's time at 29 minutes before 7 tonight. High water is at 9 minutes to 8. Low tide 2:15 a.m. Sunrise 19 minutes past 6. High water is at 27 minutes past 8 tomorrow morning. And in the middle of the night at 6 minutes after 3, it's the spring equinox.
Manx Glass and Glazing don't just do the big jobs. It's easy and cheap to repair broken greenhouse glass at Manx Glass and Glazing. For greenhouse glass cut to size, call 674 573.
There's still no official confirmation of when the Isle of Man ferry terminal will be up and running and open in Liverpool. And details of the lease are yet to be finalised. Treasury Minister Alex Allenson, MHK, told Cummal he's aware of challenges to negotiations between the DOI and the steam packet company, but thinks most of the issues have now been agreed.
I've been informed that lease negotiations are continuing. These are commercial negotiations between the two bodies. The exact date of the new lease and the technical details are not yet confirmed, and will depend upon the conclusion of these negotiations. Treasury are aware that there have been challenges, as one would expect to any commercial negotiation, but understand that the majority of issues are now considered to be agreed. There may be a role for Treasury to play if agreement cannot be reached on the rental considerations, but this will be dealt with if or when requested.
So it seems, as sort of hinted at by the Minister recently on the Manning Line, that what has actually been holding up an announcement about completion of the ferry terminal and its availability has actually been these commercial negotiations between Treasury's arm's length company and Treasury's partner, the Department of Infrastructure, given that the value of the lease for the terminal was determined by expert surveyors over a year ago. What proportion of the value will the steam packet and its customers be paying, and who else will be paying for any additional continuing costs of the terminal that the steam packet and its customers will not be paying?
Just to reassure the Honourable Member, whatever he felt he heard on the Manning Line, these commercial negotiations are not holding up the completion of the ferry terminal.
Could he let this Honourable Court know when the new ferry terminal will be open?
Obviously this needs to be done with care, because we need to make sure that not only the vessels can dock there safely, that the crew are acclimatised with the new procedures, but also that all the functionality of the terminal, particularly for foot passengers, is perfected, and particularly for those with disabilities, because there's a significant improvement in terms of those for people going forward.
Plans to replace the Cummal Mooar care home in Ramsey are on track, according to the Health and Social Care Minister. Last August, an attempt to close the Ramsey facility before a replacement was built was put on hold after concerns were raised by residents and their families. Laurie Hooper, MHK, has given Manx Radio an update on progress on the new home.
They're at the part of the capital programme which says, right, we've got a high-level plan, we've got planning permission, let's go fill in the blanks and colour in all the bits that need colouring in, essentially. So it's progressing through the government's capital programme at the pace that I would expect it to. So there's no issue there as far as I'm concerned. So my understanding is in the relatively near future it will come back through Tynwald for that kind of final vote ultimately. But as far as the Department of Health is concerned, it's progressing on track, really. I think a lot of the trust there comes down to the staff, actually, and the culture of the place and the kind of way that they work and the very positive way they engage, not just with their residents but with the community more broadly. That should never change, and quite frankly those staff also deserve a better place to work. And I know there's a lot of emotional attachment to the building itself, but the reality is what we're looking at doing as a department is replacing the physical structure with a more modern physical structure. In terms of the staffing and that ethos and that culture, I don't see why that would change at all. At the moment, what the department is looking at doing is replacing its buildings almost on a like-for-like basis. So you've seen that in Cummal Mooar, you'll see that in Rayton Bay and Summerhill View. So the department is going through and saying we have a current number of rooms, we're slightly increasing that, but essentially it's a like-for-like replacement in terms of numbers. What will be published in the very near future by the Housing and Communities Board is something called an objective assessment of housing need. So that is a piece of work that says, actually, this is roughly how many houses we think we'll need of various types based on what they've done in terms of the analysis around the census and the growing population and the ageing population and all the rest of it. That will give us some real hard data in terms of how many houses of what type to build. Alongside that, there's also a piece of work that I've asked Public Health to undertake, which they're due to report on pretty soon, that will give us more granular detail on types of housing that will be needed in terms of sheltered, residential, nursing, extra care provision. So this information, when taken together, will actually give us numbers, essentially, so it's something to aim for.
This is the most listened to Isle of Man news source, and Manx Radio's Update is the Isle of Man's most downloaded news podcast.
Faster, it's 21 minutes now before 6. Sex education is going to be reintroduced across all Isle of Man schools by September, with some classes being taught as early as the start of the summer term. The announcement was made by the Education, Sport and Culture Minister, Daphne Kane, MHK, after the curriculum was suspended in early 2023 following concerns over lesson material and the reintroduction delayed multiple times.
Schools will prioritise specific year groups with a phased approach to the reintroduction and the delivery of a full curriculum from September 2024. The focus of the first phase of delivery in secondary schools is to provide our children and young people with the opportunities to gain knowledge and skills to enable them to make informed decisions on consent, sexual communications and managing risk in order to keep safe. Content will be available on a dedicated website prior to delivery of the RSE.
If a significant number of parents decide they don't want their children to be included in these lessons, is it going to be for the actual individual schools to actually provide the additional staff and the additional support to deal with what could be 2 classes, or are the department going to provide special support to enable this to go forward?
I don't know why the Honourable Member would expect a significant number of parents would not want their children to have access to relationships and sex education. Safeguarding and well-being of all our students is of paramount importance, and the department would not reintroduce the curriculum if it was not felt age appropriate or suitable for students. Should any parents be uncomfortable with the content when they've had opportunity to look at the curriculum on the centralised website, then they would be encouraged to speak directly with the school, discuss their concerns. But I would expect that this will be very welcomed by the vast majority of parents, teachers and students.
Ahead of hosting an international tournament in May, the Manx Rams netball squad head to Portsmouth in Hampshire this Saturday to take on the UK Armed Forces teams in a series of matches. Here's Rams head coach Claire Batty on the objectives of this latest trip and what impact there's been on participation in the sport since the island hosted the inaugural Invitational Island Games in November.
It is purely focused on what we're going to be able to do and our matchups and our partnerships on court and the things that we've been working on. How can we implement those? We've got a few new additions to the squad this year. The squad actually hasn't been announced going for the Open yet, so we're still looking at what we can do there as well. So we're going to see some new ones of those coming onto court. We've got, like I say, some new people breaking into this squad. So it's certainly an opportunity to see them at a different level. We always want to play more netball against different opponents. And I think that because we've done that over a few years now, people have really got into how to prep for tournament and then how to sort of get back into life afterwards. We've certainly had a lot more people coming wanting to play like back to netball and things like that. So that's been absolutely brilliant. We're really excited about hosting in May as well. There's so many things that we're looking at during this weekend. We're so grateful to be able to go and play these games against the UK Armed Forces, who we have a great relationship with. What we're going to do this weekend is find out what we have to do between now and May. So that really is the objective of going this weekend.
When you look at the Inter-Island Games and what that did here on the island, do you think that's maybe inspired more people to get involved in the sport?
As for individuals wanting to play, I think it really has. I think that it's just shown that we can play on different levels. There's so many different levels that we can go to and so many opportunities now that we would just, we'd love to be able to continue with the Island Games and give opportunity, around to everybody. It was such a good event and we'd really like it to continue. So we're keeping our fingers crossed.
The Isle of Man in 30 minutes. Update on Manx Radio with Andy Wint.
Faster by protesters gathered outside Tynwald today to urge the island's parliament to support calls for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. They say despite months of lobbying, MHK's and the Chief Minister directly, there's been no public statement regarding the Manx position. Phil Matthews is the chair of the Amnesty International Isle of Man group.
This all came from the original statement that the Chief Minister made as Chief Minister, not personally, in October, condemning the brutal Hamas attack, quite rightly. But since then, he and Tynwald have been silent on the atrocities that we've all witnessed over the last 5 months. Now, amnesty groups, we're the only amnesty group in the British Isles that hasn't organised an event. There's about 300 of them. So we can now go back to Amnesty and say it's 100% amnesty around Britain. We felt that the letter writing has been done, the contacting MHKs, contacting the Chief Minister directly, then contacting the Ministry of Justice, which we were advised to do, only to be told by the Ministry of Justice, you should be lobbying your own parliament. So we thought an action outside Tynwald this time, knowing we weren't going to get a huge turnout, but it is amazing the number of people that have been here today on a weekday.
Why do you suppose then that if as you say, MHKs are generally supportive of some form of statement, why do you suppose that there haven't been calls on the Chief Minister in Tynwald to make a statement? There hasn't been any motions to Tynwald requiring a statement to be made. These things are all possible and any member of Tynwald could put a motion down to that effect.
We have no idea, and that's why we're all here today, representing representing all those people who are asking exactly the same question. I'm even more worried about no MHK. Well, some MHKs have spoken out and they've publicly replied to us, but nobody's felt it was worth a formal part of the Cummal proceedings at this stage. We don't know. We really do not know. We just wanted a statement. We didn't want motions or debates. We just want to know where we stand.
Manx Radio Business Briefing.
It's 5:45. Merchant banking group Close Brothers saw shares surge today after it announced a raft of measures, including a suspension of dividends to strengthen its capital position as it prepares for the conclusion of a regulatory probe into motor finance. The probe centres around so-called discretionary commission arrangements, or DCAs, through which lenders allow motor dealers to use their discretion to lend on interest rates within a certain range, leading to claims that consumers have been overcharged for car loans between 2007 and 2021. For a full daily market report, go to ramseycrookall.com. Apple is in active negotiations to license and build Google Gemini artificial intelligence models into the iPhone in updates this year, Bloomberg reports, citing anonymous sources. The deal would shake up the AI industry and put Google's AI in a commanding position with billions of users, but also risks a significant escalation of antitrust scrutiny for both companies. Could also signal Apple may not be as advanced in its AI efforts as some might have hoped. Apple recently held discussions with OpenAI too. Sources say the generative AI features in question could be baked into Siri and other apps. Apple's been testing its own large language model since early last year, but its AI technology remains inferior to tools from rivals, and also Apple's CarPlay has become its only hope of seriously cracking the automotive market now that the company shut down its electric vehicle project.
The Stock Market Report, brought to you by Ramsey Crookall.
UK and European markets flat as global investors look ahead to the start of the US Fed's two-day policy meeting. The Japanese yen tumbled, oil hit a 4-month high, and gold held steady. The numbers reported by Ramsey Crookall at the close in London. The FTSE 100 is up 0.2%, 7,738. The DAX in Frankfurt up 0.3%, 17,988. Short time ago in New York City, the Dow Jones Industrial up 0.7%, 39,053. The Nasdaq Tech Stocks Index up 0.07%, 16,115. And in the Midwest in Chicago, the S&P 500 up almost 0.3% at 5,168. In the exchange markets, the British pound sterling trading at $1, 27.2 cents, €1 17.1 cents, and 24 South African rand 5.5 cents. In commodities, gold's down 0.25%, $2,154 per troy ounce, and a barrel of Brent crude up 1.1% at $87.29.
I'm running late again. Do you know where I put my car keys?
In the fridge.
Where's my phone?
Under the dog basket.
Bye.
You haven't forgotten that we're seeing Ramsey Crookall later?
Oh, no, of course not. 5 p.m, is it?
2:45.
I'll be there.
Life is busy. That's why Ramsey Crookall's team takes time to help you make a mindful investment decision, considering all the options, giving you full control of your financial future. Less stress, more assurance.
Forgot to put my shoes on.
See how we can make your money work for you. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Tackling bad behaviour in the Isle of Man schools needs to be top priority, according to the Children's Champion. It's after a new policy introduced at Ballacameen High School when students can use the toilet has been implemented in an attempt to tackle vandalism and bullying. Kerry Sharp, MLC.
As Children's Champion, what I'm doing is I'm looking at this recent school policy and asking myself, well, is it in the best interest of the child? I suppose from the school's point of view, what they're saying is we're here to provide an education, and we know, because research shows, that the hours spent in a classroom translate into better exam results. On the other hand, conversations that I've had with high school students, they're asking the question, if I want to go to the toilet, why shouldn't I be able to go to the toilet? And I think what's interesting is that there's a big difference between 40 years ago when I was at secondary school and now. I think pandemic, students are more likely to compare their rights with those of adults. But I've had people get in touch with me, young people, who've said they don't use the toilets during break because, first of all, they're queuing for so long that they don't actually get into the toilet. They say that the toilets are full of people who are vaping and they don't want to go in. And they say that they get bullied when they go into the toilets. So I think it's really good that students are pointing out these issues. And I think there are big conversations that need to be had. What schools have to do is to look at what are the root causes of this deterioration in behaviour. And I think that this is something which the department at the moment, definitely I would say in terms of funding, probably doesn't have the resources to do. But having said that, the deterioration in behaviour at school is definitely an issue that has to be tackled as soon as possible, and resources are just going to have to be made available, because teachers have got in touch with me who've said that they've never seen the behavioural problems that they are seeing now post-COVID.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio Sport.
Faster by Rob Pritchard.
Faster Mike, good evening. Starting with motorsport, and the third generation of the Founds family will make its debut at the 2024 Isle of Man TT races. Rhys Gibbons is set to make his maiden appearance in the sidecar class alongside his uncle Alan Founds for both sidecar TT races this year. Founds experienced a challenging year on the Snaefell Mountain course in 2023, in which he nearly withdrew after his original passenger was excluded during the meeting. A new teammate in the form of Colin Smith then stepped in to help the driver, with both going on to record 10th and 11th place finishes in the first and second sidecar contests respectively. Speaking about being joined by 20-year-old Gibbons, Founds says his nephew has been chomping at the bit to do the TT, and the time's right for that to now happen. In cycling, a selection of the Isle of Man's up-and-coming prospects in cycling showcased grit and determination during National Road Series action at the weekend. 7 local competitors, 5 male and 2 female, formed the Team Utmost Mezzo Isle of Man squad to contest the 105km Junior Men's and Women's Cycle Classic in Melton Mowbray on Sunday. The Junior Men's contest saw both Ivan Sorby and Cian Howard secure top 20 finishes in 12th and 16th respectively, with Ori Lund not far behind in 23rd spot and William Curfey finishing the contest in 44th. Elsewhere, Florence Griffin and Sophie Smith represented the Ireland squad in the women's race, with Smith the highest finisher of the duo in 47th. Fellow Isle of Man competitor Ruby Oakes, competing for the Shipton Apex RT team, produced a strong display to finish 28th. And in snooker, it's all change again at the top of the Max Builders Merchant Snooker League on Ireland, with the reigning champions retaking the position at the summit. Q-Zone Blinders go up into first position after a 4-1 victory over DSB Wannabes, whilst previous leaders Peel Legion drop into second after defeat at Jackson's. Just 2 points now separate the top 3 sides of Blinders, Peel Legion and Finchel Rockets, with 4 rounds of the campaign remaining.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Everything's okay inbound at Ronald's Way. Next, it's the 7:30 EasyJet from London Gatwick, then the 528 Loganair from Liverpool, returning patient transfer, and the 8 o'clock Loganair from London City, outbound 6 o'clock Loganair to Liverpool, the outbound patient transfer, and then it's the return EasyJet to Gatwick at 8:10 tonight. On the roads, remember there are some temporary speed limits in force on sections of the lower part of the TT course, preparing for this year's TT. In Onken, temporary lights on Governor's Road between Blackberry Lane and Corkills Roundabout for patching work. Temporary lights on Braddon Road near the Strand Close for a temporary pedestrian crossing. And temporary lights in Laxey on New Road between Old Laxey Hill and Lurgy Graw for crane work. St Jude's roads closed between Sulby Bridge and St Jude's for resurfacing. And near Sulby, temporary lights on Lazaire Road at Kerramore. They're working on the pavements. Between Cronkavody and Bagarrow, temporary lights on the TT course near Handledge Corner. And temporary lights between De Craig and Hilbury, and a 40-mile-an-hour speed restriction. In Douglas, temporary lights on Somerset Road for duct insulation. Temporary lights on Newcastle Town Road at the Groves Road junction for emergency gas repairs. Hillside Avenue is closed through to Circular Road for adjacent office window replacement, and a section of Switzerland Road, Douglas, closed for construction work till November. Temporary lights too on Brighton Terrace at the Mount Bradder junction for gas main replacement. Starvey Road is closed, phase closures for water main work. And in Colby, face closures on the Ballakill Ferry Road for water main work between the Cronk and Sandygate, temporary lights on Ballamona Road for water main laying, and water main works on Keandrocker Road in Antras. The road is closed. And remember, the Heritage Trail between Crosby and Glenvine reopens this weekend. They've been doing duct insulation, which has run over.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre with 1 year's free engine warranty from Castrol. Get more with
Quayside.
Update. Brought to you by Simcox Advocates.
And just a quick word on the boat tonight. Motor vessel Manxman left Heysham at 28 minutes before 3. She'll be into the bay any moment now and onto the link span, leaving this evening at 7:45, heading for Heysham, getting there at 11:30. The overnight departure 2:15, back to Douglas at 6 tomorrow morning, and the morning departure 7:45. Manxman heads to Heysham. This is Update on Manx Radio, and the Isle of Man's prison has seen 42% increase in its population in just less than a year and is currently only 13 spaces away from maximum capacity. Since April last year, almost 40 new offenders have been locked up, which the Home Affairs Minister Jane Paul Wilson MHK is attributing to the constabulary's work in tackling drugs.
At the time of His Majesty's Inspectorate of Prisons visit in April 2023, the prison population was 90 and had been at or around that level for some time. The current figure now stands at 128 prisoners. Although the prison has an operational capacity of 141 cells, in practical terms this figure is lower due to the configuration and management of the prison. The Isle of Man prison is unique in that it holds male, female and vulnerable and remand prisoners in the same prison, separated on individual wings. Even on main population male wings, care must be taken to reduce the risk of violence due to conflicts between prisoners, which require these offenders to be separated. The prison governor reports on prison numbers daily to the department, and the department is working closely with the governor to support a number of immediate actions to ensure the prison is able to operate within its expected capacity. Both the governor and the department have powers to release prisoners early. There are stipulations around release which preclude prisoners with offences relating to violence or sexual violence being subject to early release. Where a prisoner is considered for early release, they are subject to a thorough risk and behaviour assessment first. They will also be subject to certain licence conditions. In addition, the configuration of the prison is currently under review to ensure capacity is optimised. The department is also considering the use of short-term temporary accommodation within the prison walls to hold certain lower-risk prisoners. I should reiterate that we are and will continue to be a safe place. I welcome the proactive work from the Chief Constable, which targets those who want to cause harm on our island to further their own ends. There are consequences to this work, but we have plans in place to address this temporary increase in offender numbers.
That's it for Update tonight, brought to you from the resources of Manx Radio's news department. Thanks to newsreader Dave Moore, producer Amy Griffiths. After the news at 6, Amy is back. Looking at the housing crisis on the Isle of Man. Greatest Hits with Chris Kinley at 6:30. The Folk Show with John Barker at 9 and Dave Moore with After Hours. The Late Show at 10 and Update returns tomorrow at 5:30.
WINT.